In the winter of 1959, 9 hikers set up camp on the slopes of Russia's Ural Mountains. In the middle of the night, something compelled them to cut their way out of their own tent from the inside. They fled into -30-degree darkness in their socks and underwear. None of them survived. For decades, it was one of the most baffling mysteries of the 20th century. Then, between 2019 and 2021, scientists arrived at a consensus: a highly specific environmental event known as a delayed slab avalanche. A thick, wind-compacted layer of snow breaks away in one heavy, solid block. The model shows this massive slab sliding silently onto the campsite, crushing the structure and pinning the hikers inside. This sudden, immense pressure accounts for the blunt force trauma found on the bodies and the immediate need to slash through the canvas to avoid suffocation. It is a mathematically sound, scientifically rigorous explanation. But the physical evidence left on that mountain, along with the classified Soviet files detailing the aftermath, tell a different story. The avalanche theory offers comfort and closure, yet it requires us to ignore the brutal, documented forensic realities of what searchers actually found. Led by 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, this group was composed of university students and graduates who spent years training for this exact environment. They held the Soviet Union's second-highest hiking certificate, and this expedition was designed to earn them the highest. Their target was Mount Otorten. The route was graded as Category 3, the absolute peak of difficulty in Soviet mountaineering. They had the specialized equipment, the physical conditioning, and the specific winter training to navigate it safely. The group was scheduled to return on February 12th. Because winter mountain expeditions frequently face weather delays, officials waited until February 20th to send out search parties. It took another 6 days to locate the group's final campsite. These were experts operating in an environment they understood intimately. The tragedy on the slope represents a catastrophic forced deviation from years of ingrained survival behavior. On the night of February 1st, the group pitched their tent on an open, wind-swept incline. Less than a mile below them sat a dense tree line that offered superior shelter and wood for a fire, the exact location survivalists of their caliber were trained to utilize. Then there are the footprints in the snow. Searchers found 8 or 9 sets of tracks leading away from the slashed tent down toward that tree line. The tracks were consistent and orderly. They showed calm, deliberate steps in a single-file line. An avalanche demands immediate evasion. Hikers trained to survive snowslides would step laterally out of the fall line. They certainly wouldn't walk blindly straight down the slope, in their socks at a measured pace. The behavioral evidence contradicts an environmental collapse. The deliberate retreat suggests they were trying to put distance between themselves and a localized, specific threat at the tent itself. Searchers found the first 5 bodies relatively quickly. But it took 3 months for the spring thaw to reveal the remaining 4 hikers. In May 1959, they were found buried under 4 meters of snow in a ravine. 2 of these final victims had massive internal damage. Their ribs were fractured and their internal organs were severely damaged. Yet there were no external wounds. The skin showed no bruising or cuts that corresponded to the trauma underneath. The forensic examiner conducting the autopsies noted that the sheer physical force required to shatter a human ribcage in this manner was equivalent to being struck by a car traveling at high speed. Even stranger was the soft tissue damage. 1 hiker was missing her tongue and parts of her lips. 2 were missing their eyes. Investigators explicitly noted there were no animal tracks in the ravine, and the injuries did not match natural scavenging patterns. Then, laboratory tests revealed a final forensic anomaly. The winter clothing worn by several of these victims tested positive for elevated, measurable levels of radioactive contamination. A heavy block of sliding snow can certainly crush a human torso. It cannot, however, irradiate winter fabrics, nor can it extract soft tissue while leaving the surrounding skin unbroken. As the physical evidence grew stranger, the state's reaction grew faster. In May 1959, the exact same month those irradiated bodies were pulled from the ravine, the Soviet government abruptly closed the criminal investigation. The official cause of death was listed vaguely as an unknown natural force. The morgue where the autopsies took place was immediately sealed, the case files were classified, and the KGB quietly stepped in to manage the aftermath. The state then issued an extreme geographical mandate. they completely banned all public access to the entire mountain range for 3 years, offering the public no explanation for the closure. Meanwhile, investigators actively ignored contextual reports from the area. Multiple witnesses, including search team members and local weather observers, reported seeing strange glowing orbs of light in the sky above the mountains during the weeks surrounding the deaths. These accounts were recorded and then immediately buried. A state power does not classify forensic files for 3 decades, deploy intelligence agents, and lock down an entire mountain range just to manage the public relations of a snowslide. The modern avalanche theory works perfectly in a computer simulation. To accept it, you just have to look past the radioactive clothing, the inexplicably missing tissue, and the immediate heavy-handed Soviet cover-up. The central mystery remains intact. We still don't know what 9 elite survivalists saw on that mountain. What specific threat terrified them so deeply that they chose to cut their own tent apart and flee into the freezing dark to die? The records leave behind a documented forensic puzzle, a set of real injuries and missing evidence that the world's most powerful government spent decades trying to erase. This is Atlas Dark. Subscribe for a new episode every Saturday. The next story is waiting.